Many would argue that fantasy football drafts are won in the early rounds of the draft, but we are here to argue that they are actually won in the later rounds of the draft. So, here are 6 sleepers that we believe you need to draft for the upcoming 2024 fantasy football season. All right, first up on our list today, we are going to be talking about a player that I have been talking about a lot throughout the offseason, and that is Jamison Williams of the Detroit Lions. Kind of has been the prime example of a boomer bust player through his first 2 seasons in the NFL and has had a couple issues off the field as well. But nonetheless, this is an offense that many are fans of going into the upcoming season. And JMO showed some flashes last year that make me feel a lot more comfortable about him in his third season. Plus, when we look at this offensive roster, there's no more Josh Reynolds, and somebody has to step up as the number 2 wide receiver option for the Detroit Lions. And I know Sam Laporta is here, but I'm looking purely at the wide receiver position. And down the stretch, JMO and Jared Goff showed some pretty good chemistry. In those last couple games of the regular season, he was actually putting up some pretty consistent PPR stat lines. And he had a few flashes early in the season. But what really matters to me is that through the playoffs, Jameson Williams and Jared Goff really had good chemistry. And we saw Jameson Williams score 2 touchdowns in the NFC Championship game against a very good 49ers defense. So I'm a big fan of Jameson Williams going into the coming season, and he is being drafted very late currently in mock drafts. He's going anywhere from the end of the 8th to the beginning of the 9th rounds. He is a player you can select as your 4th, 5th wide receiver. So I think he is an absolute steal and somebody who should be on your fantasy radar moving into 2024.
All right, Kyle Pitts, tight end for the Atlanta Falcons. Pretty bad 2 seasons the past 2 years, but over 1,000 yards in his rookie season with Matt Ryan. In comes Captain Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins loves throwing the football to tight ends. 5th most tight end targets of any quarterback last season. But here's a little interesting stat. Pitts was the 13th ranked tight end, but for the last 2 seasons, he's had the worst catchable ball rate in the NFL amongst tight ends. 30th out of 30 at 61% and 64% for the last 2 seasons. So we have a brand new offense, new head coach, and a quarterback who loves throwing to Kyle Pitts. We know the talent is there, and right now we're seeing him as the 6th, 7th, 8th tight end off the board. I think this is an incredible value for a guy who potentially could finish as a top 5 tight end this upcoming season.
All right, if you guys followed the channel last offseason, you guys know that I was super high on DeAndre Swift, and going into the 2024 season, another change of scenery for DeAndre Swift. And guess what? I'm really high on DeAndre Swift once again. Now, listen, this Chicago Bears offensive line, probably not anywhere near as good as the Eagles offensive line last season, but man, if you have any faith in this new Bears offense led by Caleb Williams, as well as, plethora of new wide receivers, there's no reason to believe that the Bears are not going to be in the red zone a pretty good amount this upcoming season. And DeAndre Swift is going to be a touchdown vulture, I think, once the Bears do reach the red zone. Plus, rookie quarterbacks tend to dump the ball off. DeAndre Swift is a receiving running back. I think this could be a really big year for DeAndre Swift. And we look back to last season, I mean, he was on a great pace through the first 10 games he played in. He only gave you single digit fantasy performances in PPR twice. And then as the season progressed, it was just like, well, okay, the tush push is the only thing the Eagles want to run, but Swift could have finished as a much higher rated running back last season if Jalen Hurts didn't completely take over that offensive run game. Nonetheless, I'm very high on Swift going into the season, and he is being drafted as late as the 6th round, and I just really don't understand that. So love Swift moving into the next season, and I think he should be on your fantasy radar.
All right, sticking with running backs, Brian Robinson Jr. for the Washington Commanders. Running back 21 last year, but if you've watched us at all this offseason, this is an offense we are kind of all in on. Bring in rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, and more importantly, offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff has had a lot of his success offensively in particular, running the football with running quarterbacks and getting the ball to his running backs. Now, Robinson was really good last year. The offensive line was atrocious. It's a little bit better this year, not extremely better, but still double-digit points in 9 of his 15 games he played last year, and he had a mediocre snap percentage. Expect that number to go way up, consistently in that 50% to under range. He also had an awesome 4.1 yards per carry and a crazy 10.2 yards per reception, which is big. Check downs, quick throws by the quarterback, safety blanket really helps him out. And he is a big boy, 6'2, 215, looking at those red zone opportunities, punching them in for the touchdowns. I'm kind of all in on this Commanders offense as a sleeper, but in particular, Brian Robinson, you're finding him in a weird tier of running backs, like 7th, 8th, 9th round of guys. I think he's going to be an absolute steal for you guys.
All right, last but not least for me, I'm going with Cortland Sutton, wide receiver of the Denver Broncos. If you guys have been watching the channel throughout the offseason and quite frankly, last offseason, Sutton is just that guy that I always find myself drafting in the offseason in later rounds. And right now, in the mock drafts we've been running with our subscribers, he's going anywhere between the 9th and 10th round, every now and then a little bit earlier. But man, he just feels like an absolute steal. I mean, when we look at this wide receiver room for the Broncos, I know we got rookie Troy Franklin, you got Tim Patrick maybe playing this year, you got Marvin Mims, and I get it. There's a rookie quarterback probably in play here. If not, it's going to be Jared Stidham or Zach Wilson. Like questionable quarterback play. I get it. But hey, how many of you guys were super excited about Russell Wilson's quarterback play last year? Not a ton of you guys. And guess what? Cortland Sutton in games he played last year gave you single digit fantasy performances just 3 times. He is the wide receiver 1 on paper for the Denver Broncos. He had a career high 10 touchdowns last season. I think he's due for another solid fantasy season. Remember, these are sleepers. These are guys that you can get in the later rounds. I'm not saying Cortland Sutton is going to be a player who's going to be a wide receiver 2 for you, but I do think he could be a solid flex option. And where he's going in drafts right now, he is absolutely worth the selection. Cortland Sutton should be on your fantasy radar as we continue to approach the off season.
And finally, for me, I had to do it. Go with one of my boys, Jordan Addison, wide receiver 23 last year. Look, horrendously inconsistent play at the quarterback position for the Vikings. Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy, whoever it is way better than what we got for most of the season. And Addison, 7 of his first 8 games with Cousins, double digits. He was really tearing the league up, and that was without Jefferson for a good segment of those games. But let's look at it. JJ gets the new contract. He's back. Is he going to take some of the load off? Is he going to lose targets? Not really. With JJ in the lineup the last 4 games of the season and Nick Mullins at quarterback, maybe the most competent quarterback they had without Kirk Cousins, over 15 points in 2 of those 4 games. So he's able to get the target still. He gets open. Jefferson draws that double coverage. And there's been a lot of buzz in Vikings camp so far. Sam Darnold already building that connection with Addison. Loves throwing the ball to him. Expect him to work over the middle of the field a lot more. Some of those targets we saw to KJ Osborne last year, instead of those big home run threats, we're going to see a lot more targets to Addison, a lot of drag routes over the middle. I think he's going to be an exceptional PPR guy, and he's kind of being slept on based on quarterback play. But if you look at Sam Darnold at the end of 2022 with the Carolina Panthers, threw over 200 yards multiple times down the stretch in 4 games, 320 in one of those games. So he's able to get the balls, and his favorite target was DJ Moore, a similar wide receiver to Jordan Addison, not quite the Jefferson build, a lot more of that speedy, over the middle, deep guy. So I'm in on Jordan Addison as a wide receiver 2/flex option for you in the 6th to 7th round range.
All right, there you guys have it. Those are 6 sleepers that absolutely need to be on your guys' fantasy radars. It's the month of June. It's fantasy football time. Hopefully, these guys are still going in the later rounds as we get closer to the month of August and the month of September. Nonetheless, make sure these guys are queued up while you guys are mock drafting, and be sure to let us know who your sleepers are in the comments down below. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on the catch.